وقوله قول صدق وفعله مأمون أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء.
The scholars of Islam differed about the exact date of Al-Isra and Al-Mi'raj.
There are a number of differing opinions on the chronology of the event of Isra wal Mi'raj.
From the earliest sources, there are no actual dates that are 100% agreed upon.
They differed in terms of the day, they also differed in terms of the month, and they also differed in terms of the year.
And in fact, in the earliest sources from the Sahaba's time, people don't mention dates, definitely not dates. They try to mention the time of which year it happened.
Some say it happened even the first year after prophethood, which is a strange opinion, but it's there. Some say it happened, 1 year before the Hijrah. Some say 3, 5, different opinions about that. And even with terms of the month, some say it happened in Rajab, some say it happened in Ramadan, some say it happened in Rabi' al-Awwal. So a whole range of differing opinions about when it happened. And that remains something that exists obviously today, because there is no correct, authentic narration which can remove the difference.
There are scholars who believe that this event took place at the time when the Prophet ﷺ was actually given revelation. This is the first year of his prophethood, not Hijri, his prophethood. When he was given the revelation in the cave, as we know the story, Rasulullah ﷺ was in the cave of Hira, and Jibreel came to him with the first revelation of the Quran, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq, and first 5 verses of Surah 96 were given to the Prophet ﷺ. So Imam Tabari, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, he was of the opinion that this incident actually took place in that particular year or that particular time or during that time. Imam Qurtubi has the view that this occurred in the 5th year of Nabawi, not Hijri, because the Hijri year is different to the year of prophethood, because the Prophet ﷺ had been a prophet for 5 years. So Imam Qurtubi's view was that. On the other hand, we have another scholar, Allama Mansur Puri, who had written a book in the 19th century on the life of the Prophet ﷺ titled Rahmatul lil Alameen. In this book, he asserted that this incident took place in the year 10 of Nabawi.
The reality of the religion of Islam is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes doubt from people whether it's necessary. So for example, with regards to Ramadan, there's specific ibadah related to Ramadan. So we know when Ramadan is, relating to the Friday, we know certain things. But when it comes to things that are not linked specifically to an ibadah, so we don't find any sound hadith which the Prophet ﷺ says that you must do this on Isra and Mi'raj night. So it's not related to any religious practice. Therefore, there is no real necessity for knowing the date. It's nice to know roughly when it happened, and that's why we have a sort of a widespread opinion that it happened on the 27th of Rajab, but that's probably related more to an opinion, taking in consideration other facts. Maybe there's some historical reading into that from some of the scholars.
This shows us that there is ikhtilaf, there is difference among the scholars of Islam as to when this event occurred. Now we know for certain that this event occurred after the 10th year of prophethood, when Khadija radiallahu anha died, and when Abu Talib died, and when the Prophet ﷺ was stoned in the city of Taif. How do we know this? Because we know from authentic reports that Khadija passed away in the year 10, which is known as Amul Huzn, or the year of sadness, for the reasons already mentioned. So 5 daily prayers, we are told by authentic reports regarding this particular event, were given to the Prophet ﷺ on the 7th heaven. And 5 daily prayers were made obligatory after the death of Khadija. So we know from authentic reports that these daily prayers were made obligatory upon Muslims after the death of Khadija radiallahu anha. So this makes it almost certain that it happened after the year 10. Okay. To be more certain, we have no doubt that this event took place after the year 10 and before the migration to Medina. So it happened between the year 10 to 13 of Nabawi, in between this period. We have no authentic reports with regards to the actual date of the event. There are indications, there are opinions, such as the 27th of Rajab, for example, is a date which is recommended by some scholars based upon certain reports. Some are weak, some are strong. And then there is another opinion that it happened in the month of Rabiul Awwal, possibly 2nd of Rabiul Awwal, in the year before the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina. So the ikhtilaf is huge, but we can be certain, to summarize, that this event happened after the year 10 of prophethood and before the migration of Medina.
So most early scholars are agreed that it happened around the 9th year after the revelation was sent to him, so 9 years in Mecca preaching. Around the 9th, possibly beginning of the 10th. So around the 9th or 10th after of his nubuwwah, basically. So this is the rough time period. Although later on people try to pinpoint a month, like some people said Rajab, and some people even gave the date, 27th. But none of this is really authentic, really. Nobody knows exactly which date and which month, but it's around the 9th or the 10th year. And there's a small lesson there as well. It's not important which date it was. It's not important which year it was. The important thing is what happened there and the lessons from the event. Otherwise, Sahabas and others would have recorded the time and date. Again, we have to be careful because the Prophet ﷺ very clearly told us what is worship, what is ibadah. He very clearly told us the things that we should be doing. He didn't leave anything out. So we know the two conditions for any ibadah is that it has to be sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, it has to be according to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or something that he approved. You know, sunnah includes approval, command, his action. If it's not in these two categories, then really there is a problem in terms of making this into a new ibadah or a new ritual in Islam. That's number one. Having said that, it doesn't mean you cannot remember the story. It doesn't mean you cannot talk about the story. It's good. You should talk about it. You should study it, learn the lessons from it, make people aware of it, etc. There's nothing wrong with that. But to fix a certain date and every year, you can't fix the date because you don't know. There's no authentic narration that is on that day. And even if there were so many other things that happened on specific dates. The Sahaba, first 3 generations, they never celebrated these dates, never fixed any dates to celebrate anything. Apart from 2 Eid, nothing else was celebrated. But for education awareness purposes, if every year people talk about this Israa and Mi'raj, simply to learn and take the benefit, then inshallah should be nothing wrong.
أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء.
We must understand that there is not one report in our authentic sources that gives us the full story. We have some reports more detailed than others, no doubt, but there are other reports that give us, complementary information, for example. So we do not have one report that gives us the full story.
On the Israa and Mi'raj, there are many, many narrations. There are many, many stories. Many of them are not authentic. Some of them are weak hadith. Some of them are just made up stories later on people made. They added to the story as they told the story in different places. But there are authentic hadith in Bukhari, in Muslim, and Tirmidhi, and other hadith collections, Abu Dawood.
In Sahih al-Bukhari, for example, the most authentic source after the Quran itself, we have about 20 reports from 6 different companions. In Sahih Muslim, which is another authentic source we have after Sahih al-Bukhari, we have about 18 reports from 7 different companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we can be 100% certain that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam he actually taught his companions about this particular event extensively. How do we know this? By the sheer number of the companions who report about it.
أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء.
So the Isra journey happened, as we mentioned before, it happened during the night. The Prophet ﷺ was in his house, and then the great Archangel Jibreel alayhi salam comes to the Prophet ﷺ. Some say that he knocked on his door, others say that the roof of the house, there's narration about the roof of the house being open, and he sees Jibreel alayhi salam, and that is the beginning of the incident.
Another narration says he was in the Kaaba, or on the side of the Hatim, the Hijr. He was laying there or sleeping there, and Jibreel alayhi salam came to him. In summary, those are the two versions, although they seem very different, but like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he combined the two, and he said what must have probably happened is Jibreel alayhi salam came to his house and took him to the Kaaba.
Now something happens here which is probably not related directly to the night journey, but it's also important, is that during that night the Prophet ﷺ experienced also a kind of spiritual operation.
The Prophet ﷺ says that Jibreel alayhi salam came and he opened my chest. He opened my chest and he brought a bowl, a gold vessel, and in it was hikmah and faith, iman and hikmah. And another narration says in it was Zamzam water, with which his heart or his chest was cleaned, washed.
This kind of experience is also important for us to know, because it shows how the Prophet ﷺ was always being inspired and given direction by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And then Jibreel alayhi salam brought the Buraq, this riding beast.
That animal which is described as larger than a donkey but slightly smaller than a mule.
The reason for the name Al-Buraq has been also explained by the scholars. Some scholars say it comes from the word barq, which means lightning. So because the speed of this beast was so fast, it was called Al-Buraq. But these are theories. We simply don't know why the animal or the beast was called Al-Buraq. The Prophet ﷺ explained or described it that it was a beast bigger than a donkey and smaller than mule. And Prophet was made to ride on it. And then when the Prophet ﷺ rode this beast, it took a leap, and one of the leaps it took went as far as the eye could see. This is how huge the leap of this particular beast was.
One of the narrations says that when he mounted it, the Buraq was uncomfortable. It kind of, because he doesn't know who this is. He doesn't know that's the Prophet ﷺ. And Jibreel tugged at the harness and rebuked him and said, there has wallahi nobody better than this person has ever ridden you.
From this, the ulama scholar assert that other prophets had already ridden Al-Buraq. So Al-Buraq was used for that purpose. I would like to highlight a point very quickly here. Buraq, people think was a Pegasus, a horse with two wings. No, it wasn't. Okay, there is no indication in authentic reports to suggest that it was a horse with two wings. No, this is an extension of the evidence. We have no evidence with regards to what Al-Buraq actually looked like. The Prophet ﷺ simply said it was a beast which was bigger than a donkey and smaller than a mule. And that's all we know. What it looked like, there are reports, some reports are very weak, unfortunately, and the description they give is not very convincing. So we just have to leave it as that.
This animal was to carry the Prophet ﷺ from Al-Masjid al-Haram, from Mecca to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. And then the journey begins. Through that journey, the traditions tell us that the Prophet ﷺ was invited by Jibreel to stop at certain locations and to pray. So he stops in one area which is full of date palms, and he prays there, and then later he's told that this is Tayyibah, which is also the other name for Al-Madinah. He also passes by the area of Madian, and he prays near the tree which Musa alayhi salam rested on escaping from Pharaoh prior to him becoming a prophet. Also, he stops by Tur Sinai, which is the Mount of Sinai, and also prays there. And some even mention in a narration that he stops in Baytulaham, Bethlehem, to pray in the birthplace of Isa alayhi salam. So these were all stops on the way that also give a significance of the whole journey and that connection of Islam with Musa alayhi salam, with Isa, great prophets of Allah, and obviously great instructors throughout time. And then the Prophet ﷺ reaches Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa.
This is not the physical masjid that we see today in Masjid Al-Aqsa. At that time, the physical building wasn't there. It was the same space, but this is something in a different world, different realm. It's in the unseen.
What we do know from the report that the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Jerusalem, and Allah tells us that he was taken from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. Now, what does masjid actually mean? Okay, masjid is a place of sajda where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was worshipped. Okay, and this is the temple of Solomon, what Sulaiman alayhi salam had built, or Dawud alayhi salam had built for the Jews to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not Jews, Banu Israel, to use the right term, Banu Israel, because the term Jews didn't even exist at the time. You know, at the time of David and Solomon, the term Jew was given to the Jewish people by the Romans because they lived in this province called Judea. Judea was the province which we today know as Palestine, under Roman dominion. So Banu Israel were praying in this place. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ was actually taken to the spot where the masjid existed, and he prayed in front of the prophets there. Whether the building actually existed or not, it's not important. We do know this journey took place at a very controversial period. If we were to accept the year 10 onward, after the prophethood of this particular event, the date of this event or the chronology of this event, then remember when the Persians had attacked Jerusalem and they had destroyed the city of Jerusalem. You know, they had killed over 70,000 Christians in the city, and the Jews were also part of that army when Jerusalem was invaded, because Jews were not allowed to live in Jerusalem. And afterwards, when Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu had taken the city back from the Byzantines, from the Romans, he went to the spot where masjid actually existed, and the Christians used to dump their rubbish in this place, right? So there was a big pile of rubbish in this place where the Temple of Solomon existed. The reason Christians were doing this was to ridicule the Jews, right? So Umar bin Khattab with his companions cleaned the place, and a masjid was built at that spot. So at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he traveled to this place, the form of the actual masjid is not known to us. We don't know what it looked like.
في ليلة تتزيا بالنور والإشراق جبريل جاء النبي يدعوه فوق البراق هو النبي الأمين له الصعاب تهون وقوله قول صدق وفعله مأمون أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء أجب نداء السماء يا سيد الأنبياء